I, Angie, 27F, always imagined my engagement party would be the happiest day of my life. I thought I'd be glowing under fairy lights, surrounded by laughter, champagne, and the promise of forever. And for the first 2 hours, it was exactly that. The Windsor estate was buzzing with soft jazz and the clinking of glasses. I wore a lavender silk gown that caught the light every time I moved. My hair was curled and pinned just the way Daniel liked it, elegant but a little wild. He stood beside me in a charcoal suit, his arm around my waist, our smiles as synchronized as our steps. Everything was picture perfect, until my stepmother, Lillian, decided to ruin it all. She stood near the center of the room. Her presence always a little too loud even when she whispered. A tall woman with sharp features and sharper intentions, Lillian had always played the gracious matriarch in public. But tonight, her smile was far too wide, too rehearsed. She raised her champagne glass and gently tapped it with her spoon. The room quieted instantly, and I knew something was coming. I thought maybe she would make a toast that subtly jabbed at my mother, or maybe she'd brag about how much effort she put into planning this night. That was Lillian's usual style, backhanded compliments and poison dipped in pearls, but I wasn't ready for what she actually said. "Everyone," she began, her voice dripping with faux warmth. "Thank you for joining us to celebrate the beautiful couple. Angie, darling, you look exquisite." She held my gaze for a beat too long. Something churned in my stomach. "I know we're here to celebrate love," she went on, "but sometimes, life throws us surprises, and tonight, I have one to share on behalf of my daughter." My brows furrowed. "Chloe?" What did she? Lillian turned, almost theatrically, to her daughter who stood in a pale gold dress, her face a mask of staged innocence. "Chloe is pregnant," Lillian said, then added with a twisted smile, "and Daniel is the father." The words didn't register at first. I blinked, waiting for a punchline. Waiting for someone, anyone, to laugh and say, "Just kidding." But no one did. The air left the room. I turned slowly toward Daniel. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking down, jaw tight, face pale. "Silent, Daniel?" My voice came out sharp, slicing through the quiet. "Tell her she's lying." His eyes met mine. No denial. "Just guilt, Daniel," I repeated, louder this time. "Tell her she's lying." He opened his mouth, but no words came out, and that was all the answer I needed. My heels clicked across the floor as I stepped toward Chloe. I didn't even recognize myself, my voice, my calm, the way my fingers were trembling at my sides. She had the nerve to look scared. "Good, are you serious right now?" I hissed. "You slept with him? With my fiancé? And now what of this? You announce it at my engagement party like it's your baby shower?" Chloe stepped back, her lower lip quivering. "I didn't mean to sleep with him?" I snapped. "Didn't mean to get pregnant? Or didn't mean to humiliate me in front of everyone I love?" Lillian stepped in between us, ever the protective mother when it suited her. "Angie, I understand this is hard for you, but you have to understand, love doesn't always follow rules." I laughed. Laughed. It was bitter and hollow and sharp. "Love? Is that what you're calling it now? Stealing your sister's fiancé is love?" "We're not real sisters," Chloe whispered, shrinking under my glare, and there it was. The truth. Not real sisters. Not real family. Just competition dressed in matching childhood memories. I looked back at Daniel one more time. I needed him to say something, anything, that would make me believe this wasn't happening, but he just stood there. Still. Silent. Cowardly, I reached up and unclasped the engagement ring from my finger. My hands didn't even shake. I walked over to the dessert table and placed it right on the cake, dead center. "Like the cherry on top of a lie, you two deserve each other," I said coldly. "I hope you enjoy your child and your miserable life together." Gasps and whispers swirled around the room as I walked out, head high, heart broken into shards too small to count. No one followed me. Not even my father, but that was fine, because I would never forget this moment. And one day, neither would they. People say the worst part of heartbreak is the moment it happens. They're wrong. It's the silence after, the way everything slows down, how people walk on eggshells around you, how your phone stops ringing because no one knows what to say. The engagement party that wasn't turned into gossip overnight. My name was on everyone's lips, but no one dared say a word to my face, not that I gave them the chance. The morning after I left Windsor Estate, I packed everything into 3 duffel bags and moved out of the apartment I shared with Daniel. I left behind the wine glasses we bought in Italy, the framed picture from our trip to Bali, the little notes I used to leave in his coat pockets. All of it. He could keep the furniture and the memories. I didn't want either. I moved into a tiny studio with peeling wallpaper and a leaky faucet. It was nothing like what I was used to, but for the first time in years, it was mine. No Daniel. No Lillian. No Chloe, just me, and I finally let myself cry. It wasn't the soft, delicate kind of crying you see in movies. It was ugly. Guttural. The kind that wrecks your chest and leaves your eyes swollen for days. I cried until I couldn't breathe, until I had nothing left in me but silence. Then I got up and went to work. I threw myself into 12-hour shifts at the firm. My boss, Amanda, said nothing about the headlines swirling around social media. She just gave me more cases. More files. More reasons not to go home. For 6 months, I didn't take a single day off. I got promoted, but none of that filled the hole. It wasn't the betrayal itself that haunted me, it was the humiliation. The knowing that my stepmother waited until the height of my joy to strike. That Chloe had smiled in my face for months while sleeping with the man I loved. That my father, who watched it all unfold, had said nothing. He sent a message later that night, "I'm sorry you had to hear it that way. I hope you'll come around when you're ready to talk." That was it. I never responded. He never followed up. Daniel texted, too. Once. Weeks later. It simply said, "I didn't know how to stop it." I deleted it, and him, but here's the thing about heartbreak, it doesn't kill you. It changes you. It hardens the soft parts. Sharpens your edges, makes you see the world differently. And slowly, quietly, I changed. I started going to a new cafe on weekends, where no one knew my name or my story. I read books again. I joined a yoga class even though I was horrible at it. I cut my hair short, and for the first time in forever, I didn't care if anyone liked it. And then I met Evan. He wasn't like Daniel. He didn't pretend to be perfect. He was kind, with a quiet strength and a patient way of listening. I met him at a community fundraiser I almost skipped. He poured wine at my table and asked if I liked bad jokes and overpriced coffee. I said yes. He didn't ask about my past. He waited until I was ready to tell him. And when I finally did, months later, over greasy Chinese takeout and a thunderstorm, he just held my hand and said, "You didn't deserve any of that." He didn't treat me like I was broken. He treated me like I'd survived something powerful, and then I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't planned. It wasn't perfect. But when Evan got down on one knee with a ring he had carved a little mountain into, because he said I reminded him of one, steady and unmoved, I said yes. We had a small wedding by a lake. No big announcements. No guest list drama. No stepmother, just us. And a few months later, we welcomed our daughter, Isla. She had my eyes and Evan's laugh. She was born during a sunrise, and when I held her for the first time, I realized something that hit me harder than all the heartbreak ever did. I didn't lose everything. I lost what wasn't meant for me. And in return, I found this peace, a family, love. 2 years. It had been 2 years since I walked out of my own engagement party with a shattered heart and a spine made of steel. 2 years since I left behind the people who watched me be humiliated and said nothing. 2 years since I became someone new, someone stronger. I hadn't planned to ever see them again. If it were up to me, they could have kept their picture-perfect dysfunction and I would have continued living my quiet, unbothered life with Evan and Isla, but life, of course, has a sense of irony. The invitation came in a cream envelope, tucked inside a baby blue card announcing my cousin's engagement. A family function. Small, casual, only the closest people. I ignored it. Then another message came, this one from Aunt Maureen, the only person in my family who hadn't turned her back on me. I know it's complicated, but I'd love to see you. Bring your husband. Bring the baby. Just for a couple hours. Please. She'd always been kind to me, so I didn't say no. But I set the terms. We arrived at the event mid-afternoon. Evan wore a crisp white shirt and khakis, Isla strapped to his chest in a soft floral carrier, her little fingers gripping his collar like he was her whole world. He probably was. I wore a navy blue wrap dress, subtle but elegant. My hair was longer now, darker. My smile? Calm. Detached. I wasn't the same Angie they remembered. The backyard buzzed with light laughter and clinking glasses. A few heads turned as we entered, then quickly turned back. But whispers followed, like smoke trailing a flame. I caught eyes with my father first. He looked older. A little smaller. He opened his mouth as if to speak. But I breezed past him. I wasn't here for closure. I wasn't here for them. Evan squeezed my hand. You okay? More than okay, I said, adjusting Isla's little sun hat. Let's get a drink. We were by the mimosa bar when I saw her, Lillian. She stood at the far end of the patio, nursing a glass of wine, her expression frozen the moment her eyes locked with mine. She looked thinner. Her usual air of superiority had dulled, like a gold frame chipped at the corners. And beside her, clinging to her arm like a lifeline, was Chloe. No baby bump. No toddler. Just her. I didn't move. I didn't need to. Lillian came to me. It took her nearly 15 minutes of circling the event, pretending not to stare, before she finally walked over. Her heels clicked nervously against the stone, a sound I once knew too well. I straightened my back and held Isla a little closer. Angie, she said softly. You look good. I looked her over once before replying, you don't. She flinched. Can we talk? Please? I glanced at Evan, who nodded and took Isla with a kiss to my cheek. I'll be nearby. We walked a short distance away, just beyond the string lights and the buffet table, near the garden wall. She took a breath. I know you have every reason to hate us. Good, I said. Because I do. Lillian's hands twisted nervously in front of her. I didn't know Chloe was lying. I stared at her, deadpan. You announced her fake pregnancy at my engagement party. You humiliated me. And now, what? You want forgiveness because you got burned? Her voice cracked. There was no baby. There never was. She lied. She told us she was pregnant, that it was Daniel's. We believed her. I believed her. I narrowed my eyes. Why? Because I wanted to, she said, finally breaking. Because I thought Chloe deserved something. Because I thought you'd bounce back like you always do. I let out a breathless laugh. You destroyed my life for her lies. You let me be humiliated for your ambition. Lillian looked like she might cry. She lost everything, Angie. Daniel left her a month after the party. He demanded a paternity test and stormed out when she stalled. She finally confessed there was no baby. She just didn't want you to be happy. She got what she wanted, I said coolly. And now? She has nothing, Lillian whispered. She's depressed. She barely leaves her room. And she looked up, desperate now, I miss you. We miss you. I was wrong. We were wrong. I crossed my arms. You didn't come to apologize. You came to ask for something. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Be part of our lives again. Chloe needs help. I need help. Isla is our family. You're our family. No, I said firmly. You don't get to play that card. You were never my mother. And Chloe made damn sure we were never sisters. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't finished. I don't need a broken family asking for scraps. I have a husband who adores me. A daughter who is loved. A life that's mine and peaceful. And none of it includes people who celebrated my pain. I turned and walked away, my heels clicking with the kind of confidence I didn't have 2 years ago. When Evan saw my face, he raised an eyebrow. You good? More than good, I said, reaching for Isla, who giggled as I kissed her cheek. Let's go home. And as we walked out of the backyard filled with people who once cheered for my downfall, I realized something. Closure doesn't come from apologies. It comes from choosing not to let the past poison what you've built. You'd think after that confrontation in the garden, Lillian would get the message, but when people like her get desperate, they don't back down. They regroup. They find new angles. And apparently, this time, their angle was the rest of the family. It started subtly at first. A message from my cousin Rachel. I know it's not my place, but Chloe's not doing well. She's seeing a therapist now. Maybe you could talk to her? I didn't reply, then Aunt Marla called. Sweetheart, I heard what happened at the engagement party. I just want to say, I'm proud of how strong you've been. But maybe now it's time to let the past go? I almost laughed. Let the past go. It was never just the past. It was a scar. A public crucifixion served cold by my own bloodline. And now, just because time had passed, I was expected to hand out forgiveness like party favors. Still, I stayed civil. Thanks, Aunt Marla. But I'm not interested in revisiting anything. She hesitated before dropping the real reason for her call. Well, we're actually hosting a little family dinner next weekend. Very small. Just the inner circle. Lillian and Chloe will be there, but it's not about them, it's about reconnecting. Everyone would love to see you, Evan, and the baby. I didn't answer right away. I could practically hear the bait in her voice. Wrapped in concern, glazed in nostalgia, served with guilt, Evan watched me from across the kitchen as I ended the call. Let me guess, he said, drying a plate. The campaign to get you to forgive the unforgivable has begun? They want us to come to dinner. He raised a brow. You want to? I leaned back against the counter. I want them to stop pretending they're doing this out of love. I want them to admit what they did. He nodded. Then let's go. But on your terms. And that's exactly what we did. The dinner was held at my uncle's place, some rented space with long tables and catered food like they were celebrating something. The moment we walked in, all eyes turned to us. To Isla, really, she looked like sunshine with legs, dressed in a soft yellow dress, her curls bouncing, gripping Evan's finger with her tiny hand. Everyone softened at the sight of her. A few people even dared smile at me, like nothing ever happened. Like the Angie they remembered was back, tucked neatly into the image of wife and mother. Lillian approached us almost instantly, Chloe trailing behind her like a forgotten shadow. You came, Lillian said, clasping her hands like she was holding back emotion. I did, I said. Don't make me regret it. She offered a strained smile. That's not my intention. We just want peace. Chloe stepped forward then, her eyes red-rimmed, her makeup minimal for once. Angie. She began, her voice trembling, I know you probably hate me. I wouldn't blame you if you did. But I want to say I'm sorry. Truly. I lied. I was jealous. And I ruined your life. My jaw clenched. No, I said. You didn't ruin my life. You ruined yours. Mine just got redirected. She blinked fast, and for a second I saw the girl she used to be, the one who used to share cereal with me on school mornings. Who cried when I scraped my knee and let me wear her scarves, but that girl was long gone. I don't expect us to be close again, she continued. But I hoped maybe we could start over? The room watched. Like this was a show. Like my pain was just a subplot in their drama. I turned to face the group, my voice clear, you all watched me get blindsided. You saw them destroy my engagement, and you let them. Some of you even clapped when they made the announcement. A few eyes dropped. A few fidgeted, and now, 2 years later, because things didn't work out for them, you want to pretend like it never happened. You want me to hug it out and take family pictures and pretend Chloe didn't try to build a life on my ruin. Lillian looked like she was holding her breath. Chloe was already crying, but here's the thing, I went on, I don't owe anyone a second chance just because we share a last name. I built a new life, not because of you, but in spite of you. And it's a good one. A peaceful one. One I will protect from the kind of chaos you bring. Evan stepped beside me, Isla resting against his chest, her eyes fluttering sleepily. We came here so you could say what you needed to say, I added. Now you've said it. And I've said mine. Angie, my father spoke up for the first time. Please. I miss my daughter. I looked him in the eye, the weight of his silence 2 years ago crashing between us. No, Dad. You missed the version of me who stayed quiet. And with that, I turned to leave. No one followed, not this time. For a while after the dinner, there was silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the stillness before a storm. I could feel it in the air. In the way my phone buzzed at odd hours. In the sudden resurgence of messages from extended relatives I hadn't heard from in years. In the fake, performative just checking in comments under old social media posts, they were regrouping, plotting, and then the threats began. It started with a voicemail from Lillian. Her voice was tight, almost cold. You might want to consider the family's image before you go around making a scene like that again. Your cousin's engagement party was not the place for your drama. You made a spectacle, again. Haven't you done enough? As if I was the one who'd crashed my own life. As if I had stood up at someone else's event and thrown a grenade. I played it on speaker, standing in the kitchen while Evan prepped dinner. He listened silently, his jaw tightening with every word. When it ended, he didn't even look up. She's unraveling, he muttered. She doesn't know how to control you anymore. A day later, Chloe texted me from a new number. I'm sorry it turned out this way. But I've been talking to a lawyer, and since we're technically family, I wonder how a court would view defamation if this continues. Please stop telling people things that hurt my reputation. I laughed, not the happy kind. This one was bitter and short. Because now they were scared. Not of losing me, but of losing the image they'd built. Lillian, the poised matriarch. Chloe, the wounded but remorseful sister. The family that had weathered a difficult chapter. That lie was cracking, and I was the one holding the hammer. Later that week, Aunt Marla called again. I know you're angry, she said. Her voice syrupy sweet. But all families go through hard times. Your mother would have wanted you to forgive them. There it was, the weapon of last resort, my mother's memory. I gripped the phone tightly. Don't you dare use her. You didn't even show up at her funeral. That's not fair, no, I snapped. What's not fair is trying to guilt me using the one woman who actually loved me. You don't get to weaponize her memory just because your golden girl is falling apart. She tried again. But Chloe's not well. She's talking about hurting herself. Lillian's been crying every night. Do you really want that on your conscience? There it was, the manipulation, the classic you're responsible for other people's emotions tactic they had used on me since I was a teenager. I was supposed to be the fixer, the peacemaker, the good daughter. The one who swallowed her pain so the rest of them could sleep at night. Not anymore. I am not their emotional support punching bag, I said. If Chloe's unwell, she should get help. But not from me. Not after what she did. And certainly not while you all continue to gaslight me into believing this is somehow my fault. I hung up. 10 minutes later, my father called. I let it go to voicemail. Angie. I don't know what happened to you. You used to care about this family. About loyalty. Now you sound cold. Ruthless. I hope your daughter doesn't grow up thinking this is how we treat people we love. That one hit a nerve. Because it wasn't loyalty I had lost, it was the illusion of it. I'd spent years being loyal to people who never had my back. Who stood silent while I was broken in front of a crowd, ruthless, no, boundaried, and I would damn well make sure my daughter grew up knowing the difference. I walked into Isla's nursery that night, watching her tiny chest rise and fall, her hand curled against her blanket. I sat down beside her crib and whispered, "You will never beg someone to love you the way I had to. You will never be taught that abuse wrapped in family is love." And for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel angry, I felt free. There comes a moment, after the gaslighting, the guilt trips, the fake apologies, where you stop trying to explain your pain and just walk away from it. That moment came for me 3 weeks after the dinner, when Chloe showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door to see her standing there with trembling hands and tear-glossed eyes. No makeup. Hoodie and leggings. A ghost of the girl who once smirked as she announced her imaginary pregnancy to a room full of people at my engagement. She looked at Isla through the screen door. "She's beautiful?" She whispered. I didn't move. "What do you want?" She looked down, inhaled sharply. I need you to understand. I was scared. I thought he liked me more. I thought if I had something, if I had a baby, he'd stay. I didn't know what I was doing. "Yes, you did," I said quietly. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You just didn't think it would cost you this much." Tears spilled freely now. "I lost everything." "No," I said calmly, "you tried to take my everything. And now you're dealing with the consequences of your own actions." Her voice cracked. "But we're sisters." I stepped out, closing the door gently behind me. "No. You were my half-sister. I was never your sister. You made sure of that." Chloe sobbed then, the kind of broken sobs that might have once cracked something in me. But I wasn't that girl anymore, and I had nothing left to give. "You need help," I said. "Real help. Therapy. Accountability. Not another attempt to reel me back into your mess so you can feel better about yourself." "I'm not trying to, you are," I said firmly. "But I'm done. You don't get access to me just because you're sorry now. And you definitely don't get access to my daughter." Chloe opened her mouth again, but I cut her off. "This is your closure. Whatever peace you find, it won't involve me. I don't wish you harm. But I also don't owe you healing." I went back inside and closed the door behind me. She didn't knock again. Later that night, I sat down with my laptop. My inbox was cluttered with messages from various relatives, some pleading, some angry, some passive-aggressively reminding me how family is all we have in the end. I opened a blank document and wrote an email. Subject: "For the record, dear all, after recent events and several manipulative attempts to force reconciliation, I want to make this perfectly clear: I am not part of this family anymore. Not the version that enables cruelty and labels it tradition. Not the version that punishes truth and rewards lies. Not the version that uses grief, guilt, and shame to pull strings. What happened 2 years ago was not a misunderstanding. It was betrayal, deliberate, public, and vicious. And no apology, no dinner invitation, no guilt-tripping will change the fact that most of you stood by and watched it happen. I don't need closure from you. I created it myself. My family is Evan and Isla. That's it. Do not contact me again unless it's to sincerely own up to your actions and accept that forgiveness does not entitle you to access. I've blocked every number tied to this nonsense. I've set up legal protections around my home and family. If any further threats, harassment, or smear attempts are made, my lawyer will handle it. I wish you all the best. Far, far away from me, Angie." I hit send, and for the first time in years, I breathed. Evan walked into the room, Isla snuggled against his chest, milk-drunk and drowsy. He looked at me. "It's done?" "It's done," I said, and it was. I hadn't forgiven them. I hadn't hugged it out. I hadn't made peace in the way they wanted, but I had chosen my peace, and that was the difference between who I used to be and who I had become. I wasn't just the girl they betrayed, I was the woman who got back up, built her own life, and closed the door behind her, for good.